Today we're at the home of politician Olivia Chow, who shares with us her own personal narrative as an immigrant to this country years ago, and the various initiatives that she has fought hard for over the years to help fellow immigrants feel safe and welcome in Canada. Immigration story, your own personal immigration story, how that impacted your life and your career. Can you tell us a bit about that and how it's probably pushed you in a certain direction? I'm going to make the assumption.
I came to Canada with my mom and dad when I was 13. My dad was a opera singer, a school superintendent, pretty middle class, taught English, biology, fluent in English, and my mom was also a teacher, and but very similar to a lot of immigrant stories, they couldn't find a job they were trained on, and as a result, it was really tough. The adjustment was tough. My dad couldn't find a job, tried driving taxi, delivering Chinese food, it just broke him. Mm-hmm. So that experience really molded me into wanting to make sure that immigrants' lives are better, that they can adapt better, find a job faster, that their credentials are recognized, and that there are more counseling and mental health support for immigrant families. So it does, my background shaped me in many ways.
Absolutely. And could you think of a couple of things that you've done in terms of immigration policy, trying to promote a change in policy, or a change in how immigrants are accepted and helped into society in Canada?
Mm-hmm. I can give you 3 examples. Number one is that I know that some of the immigrants arriving to Canada, and unlike my mom and dad, really can't speak English very well, and I thought, okay, if you call 911, if you can't speak English, your house could be burning down. Right. If you don't know the word fire, or your husband is like choking, what are you going to say? So I did a campaign to get 911 to speak 140 languages. That's a direct result of the kind of experience that I had. Mm-hmm. I didn't particularly experience that myself, but people that I know, and I understand why it was a problem.
Right.
So that's one. The second one is the importance of families. Because if we have kids going to school together, mom and dad being able to play with their kids and other people's kids in the schoolyard, in the library, then the community is a lot stronger. Right. If you just have single men or single women not being able to bring their kids over, it's hard on the family, but it's also not strong. It doesn't really build healthy community, which is why I objected tremendously the Conservative government's policy of bringing temporary foreign workers. We work them, and then they don't get to stay here permanently, and after 4 years we kick them out. We don't have the kids, we don't have stability, and we don't build strong communities. And that again comes from my own personal stories. Yeah.
And the third
one, I have lots.
There's a couple I wrote down too, so I'm curious. Yeah.
There's one that Vietnamese refugees, when they first arrived to Canada, they weren't able to arrive to Canada. I thought, oh my God, they are drowning at sea. They're stuck in refugees camp, they are being robbed, raped, and killed, and immense suffering. So I jumped in. That was my first political campaign.
I was going to say, okay, so that was the very first time you actually got involved politically, was that with that?
Yeah, the power of the collective. There was a campaign called Operation Lifeline. And I jumped in and said, oh yes, let's go to the rally. I thought, oh, that's what rally's about. Oh, okay. That's what politics is about. What? This is what government can do. They can open the door for Canadians can become generous, and we can bring these Vietnamese refugees to Canada. It's great.
And how was that? Was it a successful initiative?
Oh God, yeah. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
It is by far the biggest. The entire campaign, at the end of the entire campaign, was like 200,000 Southeast Asian refugees that arrived to Canada. And 1 year alone, that's 60,000. You compare to what's happening with Syrians right now.
Yeah.
They talked about 1,200 or 2,000, well, or you know, maybe at the end of 2 years, 3 years, it would be 10,000. They've been talking about it. The actual number of Syrians that are actually making it to Canada is tiny. A few hundreds. It's less than 1,000. Last I looked, it might be a few more now. But we're not talking about 60,000. But the Syrian refugees crisis right now, what's happening in the Middle East, is just as serious as what was happening in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So the refugees in the Mediterranean or in Indonesia, they are drowning. They are stuck in refugees camp. They're just as desperate as what's happening in 1979. We need to respond.
So that brings me to the question of, as you sort of watch the evolution of how governments have looked at immigrants and how they deal with immigrants, how they open they are, how closed they are, considering where you've come from and what you saw when you first arrived and to where we are now. Have you seen a lot of change? Has there been momentum in terms of being more open, more helpful, or have we gone backwards?
I think us as a society are far more diverse, far more accepting, and have a deeper understanding that us as Canadians, we create our identity together, and that the motto of diversity is our strength is really true. That nowhere else in this world is there a country or a city like Toronto that have so many different people from different places calling themselves proud Canadians,
right,
and living in harmony. Having said that, that's the people.
Right.
But we have a government that bring in 200,000 temporary foreign workers, use them and then kick them out, and then we are asking refugees that in desperate shape that they have to pay for their health care. Wait a minute. You can't, they don't have a lot of money. What are they going to do, right? So that's not fair. We are not accepting as many refugees in terms of public and private sponsorship of bringing refugees into Canada when there's a crisis like in Syria, or they're stuck in Turkey, for example, or Jordan. It's so much harder to bring your families together. So in terms of family reunification, we've completely fallen down on our job. Used to be whether it's Italian or Chinese or Vietnamese or whatever, or Irish, when you get to Canada, you can sponsor your parents and your brothers and sisters. In my book, that's family. Your sons and daughters. Now, sponsoring your parents takes forever. Your son and daughter, if it's over 21, won't be able to come. Your brother and sister, tough luck, won't make it. Just so difficult to bring your family here. And as a result, a lot of immigrants are here alone. They don't have their families with them, and that's not good. We need more people.
And was that different when you came? The
Yeah.
families came together as a unit?
Yep, very much so. In the 70s, if you look at the Italian and Portuguese, yeah, the entire family, because big families, right? Not just one person. It's their brother and sisters and their spouses, they all, niece, nephew, and just very big extended family. You can't do that anymore.
No.
You can't even bring your parents over half the time. It takes 8 years to sponsor them.
So that has to change in your opinion?
Oh God, yeah.
So if you had the chance to change some of the policy? Would that be
A
obviously
magic wand? Yes.
Yeah, that would be it.
That would be a policy that I would change.
That would be it. Okay. What about lessons learned that you've taken on from working specifically with immigrants and immigration policy and trying to make a difference in that arena? What have you learned in terms of what can impact change and what is more difficult and how to go about those challenges?
Well, start with the people. Don't prejudge. Oh, I think they really need employment. Well, don't make that assumption.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think organizing 101 is you start with the people. What is their story? What's relevant to their lives? Listen and connect first. And then once you bring the people together and said, okay, if there's one thing you want to change collectively, what would it be? And I think that's number one. Number two, establish the relationships. That's really important. Number three, you form teams together and then look at where is the power. What is, well, in order to make change, is it something that we need more power in order to make that happen? Where is the power? We need to locate that in order to make change. And what are the strategy and what would be the appropriate tactics?
Okay. Okay.
And how do we take action together?
Together.
Very important.
Mm. And one other thing I wanted to address also, I was curious about your work that you did to sort of get an apology for the Chinese head tax.
Mm. God, that's a 23 years campaign.
I was just going to say, so how long were you working on that?
23 years. It started in I haven't even added it up. It's 1983, I think 82, 83, something like that.
Yeah.
And I started collecting these certificates, these seniors. Oh, Miss Chow, let me show you. And they have to go to their safety deposit box. They pull out this, very folded, very old head tax certificate. I thought, wow, what's that? $500. $500. Well, that's like $2 million today, or more now. And they said, why do we have to pay this? And I say, okay. Well, it's not fair. Okay, what do you want? Well, we need recognition. We think we need an apology. Why do we have to pay it? No one else have to pay it just because we're Chinese? So, yeah, that campaign went on. For many years.
And when finally you achieved...
in 2006.
2006. And so that must have felt...
It was great.
Good.
Well, also it was the year that I got elected. It was my first campaign.
That helped.
It was successful.
Yes.
I got elected and I got this done. Woohoo! That's good. But it's not me, the MP, that got elected that got it done. It's really all the work that a lot of community groups and a lot of the head taxpayers themselves that kept going and going. Many of them died. Many of them are widowed. Many of them continued. And it's really them that made it happen. I happen to be one of the public voice.
Well, it's kind of what you said about working together in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
Anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of your proud moments? I think everything else you alluded to probably are the stuff that you're most proud of in terms of this area, but is there anything else that makes you proud to, as an immigrant to Canada and as the work you've done in this field? Anything else you wanted to say?
There was one, when I was working on this field, there are these immigration consultants that are ripping people off. Not all of them, a few of them are crooks. They are just crooks. All they care about is to make a lot of money. From people that are semi-vulnerable, they don't have a lot of money, right? Some of these immigrants, they save up lots of money and just give it these crooked consultants, I thought. So again, I started looking at that in late 80s. And then when I got elected in the House of Commons, I started working with the Conservatives. I'm a New Democrat. The Liberal talked about it and didn't get it done. And then the Conservative happened to be a minister, Jason Kenney, that liked to get things done. Now, I don't necessarily like everything that he'd done. But in this area, and I kept saying, why are you soft on crime against immigrants? It's their line, soft on crime, right? You're soft on crime, you're soft on crime against immigrants. We need to do something. Mm-hmm. And we finally crafted a legislation. in C-35 that cracked down on crooked consultants. Now you have to register, you have to be licensed. Before, you and I tomorrow may not know anything about immigration law, which is pretty complex. We can just say, with a nice website, we say, we can do this for you. We make millions of bucks, right? I want to be like, whoa.
I can't do that anymore?
No. Yeah, you have to write tests.
Oh.
You have to go through a registration process. You have to be evaluated and re-evaluated. You have to pass. If you don't, you can't set up shop.
That's great. So that was fast.
Yeah.
When was that?
2010 or something like that. I don't remember. It was like, yeah, it was a great thing. Yeah. So actually, the minister himself, when he made the public announcement, publicly said, you know, Olivia Chow there. We want to thank her for assisting in putting this legislation together. I thought, I thought, whoa, okay, that's nice.
Acknowledgement?
Yeah. Well, that feels good, but neither here nor there. I'm not the minister, but from late '80s, early '90s to like again all this time, and finally, after all these horrific stories, how people's lives been wrecked by these crooks, really, and being able to change it. It's the power of both the collective, and that sometimes having government involved is important. It helps, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.